What's good, YouTube? It's White Mike, and today I'm going to be discussing the recent announcement of the Nikon Z6 and Z7 mirrorless cameras from Nikon and my initial impressions. First, I'd like to say that I was wrong about the announcement. Well, mostly. It did exceed my expectations, but nothing they announced was innovative. I'm not one to scavenge the internet for patents and rumors to kind of cheat the system. I kind of wanted to take my best guess, and it was off to say the least. If you've seen my previous video, then you know that I went through my thoughts on what the new Nikon mirrorless camera may be in terms of specs. I believe initially most people expected there to only be one camera. However, you recall me saying there should be two cameras if Nikon was smart. If they're smart, they'll put the D850 sensor in this camera. Actually, they would release two cameras, one that has 24 megapixels and then one that has the D850 sensor. Anyhow, let's jump into the Z7, which is the higher end model, but the camera I think that will not be as popular. Nikon Z7 has a 45.7 megapixel backside illuminated full frame sensor, 493 point phase detection autofocus system, 5-axis in-body stabilization, 0.8 times magnification viewfinder, a 3.2 inch touchscreen LCD, a top panel OLED display at 9 frames per second, continuous shooting with an ISO range of 64 to 25,600. The Z6, on the other hand, it's more of an all-around camera to compete with the A7 III. It has 24.5 megapixels, 273 phase detection autofocus points, the same IBIS, the same viewfinder, the same touchscreen, OLED display on top, etc. This camera is faster. It has 12 frames per second, continuous shooting with an ISO range of 100 to 51,200. Now, you do have to take those numbers with a grain of salt, since these are pre-production models, and also if you're shooting uncompressed RAW, you're going to get slower speeds. Now let's get into some details of both of these specific models. I know the Z7 is aimed to compete with the A7R III and the Z6 is aimed to compete with the A7 III, but I still think they are lacking. Just like everyone else, I've watched all the hands-on videos to get an understanding of the capabilities of these cameras. One thing to point out is that both of these cameras only have a single XQD card slot. I'm not sure why they did that with all the Sony has taken over the years about having one SD card slot. The good thing about the Nikon is that it's supposed to have weather sealing that is up to par with the D850. The battery, on the other hand, from what I've seen, is mediocre at best and is rated to around 300 shots. I've also heard mixed reports on the focusing system and that it's not that fast and there are delays. But keep in mind, this isn't the final firmware. There seems to be issues with blackout, continuous shooting, and issues with the location of the custom buttons. I guess people with smaller, shorter fingers aren't just able to reach them. I do think they're in a weird place. The thing that surprised me the most about the announcement was the included video features on the Nikon cameras. Nikon's giving you zebras, focus peaking, 10-bit 422, and flat in-log profile. It is important to note that the 10-bit 422 and in-log are only available with an external recorder, which I think is a big letdown. Cameras like the GH5 can do this internally. I have an Atomos recorder myself, which I'm using here. Even if my Sony gave me that only externally, I don't think I'd find myself using it much at all, since it's it's not practical for run and gun situations. I really just use this mainly for a monitor. How do I feel Nikon did? I think I'm kind of on the fence here. While they did release two cameras with decent specs, I feel if they wanted to take the throne away from Sony, they were going to need to do a bit better and stop focusing on being a camera company and handicapping their lower end cameras while being a consumer-based company and giving everyone the features they want, which is really what Sony is focused on. And there's no reason that the Z7 should have more focus points than the Z6. I really don't understand that. I think Nikon should focus on the current cameras in the next 6 months, then try to come up with a better overall camera. I mean, once they see what Canon and Sony have come out with in Q4, because frankly, I think the Sony a7S III is going to be a dream video camera, and the Canon mirrorless cameras are going to compete well with the Sonys. Will I be switching back to Nikon? No. I mean, not with this lineup. I'll be willing to switch to Canon, if they come up with something better than the A7 III, but I don't think that will happen. I really think they're just gonna match what the A7 III could do, if anything. Not to mention, I already have a lot of Sony lenses. I'm all down for change and innovation, and this is a great time in the camera world to kind of see how far we can push the limits. I've shot Nikon, I've shot Canon, I've shot Sony. Hell, I even bought a GH5 to see what all the hype was about. But at the end of the day, it's about how you use the tool, not necessarily what the tool specs are on paper. Well, that's my opinion on the Z6 and Z7. What's yours? Are you gonna order the Nikon mirrorless cameras? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to respond as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you want more content, you know what to do. That's real.